Okay, so try to talk to someone around you, and we will share in a minute. Okay, you gotta tell me. Good. Tell me. I played lacrosse. I have about 30 more seconds. All right, does anybody want to raise their hand and share anything they like to do? Yeah.
So my first one is eat, and then my second one is sleep.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah. Like to read. Okay. Yeah.
I like to build.
Say it one more time.
I like to build.
Build. Okay.
I like hanging out with my pets.
Say it one more time. Please.
I like hanging out with my pets.
Hang out with pets. Anybody else? One more. What does someone like to do? Yeah.
I like to play video games.
Okay. Video games. I don't really like video games, but okay. So I know Ms. Paludi mentioned it earlier, but does anyone remember what our unit we're going into is? Yeah.
Communication.
So we're going into communication. Okay. And our aim for today, okay, so what I want you to be thinking about during our lesson is what are communication barriers and bridges? Okay, so I know you can't answer that right now, but our goal is that at the end of the lesson, you will be able to. Okay? So why do you think we need to learn communication? Why is it important? Anybody have any thoughts? Yeah.
So people can communicate.
Right, pretty simple. Okay? So you need to be able to communicate. Anything else? Anyone want to add anything else? Yeah.
How else are you supposed to talk to people if you don't know how to communicate?
Right, if you can't communicate, you can't talk to other people. Okay? Again, pretty simple. Alright, so communication is that foundation for any interactions you have with other people. So being able to effectively communicate is very important. So now, did anybody realize a few of the things that I was doing while you were giving me your do now responses? Did anybody pick up on any of those? Yeah?
You were looking at us.
I was looking at you. Could be positive or negative. Yeah.
You were listening.
I was listening. Okay.
Spectating.
Alright. Yeah.
You weren't talking.
I wasn't talking. Okay. Now, did anybody realize any of the negative things that I was doing? Yeah?
You were picking up papers and walking around.
Okay. So maybe I wasn't really paying attention. Right? I was listening to other students talk. Maybe while you were talking. Okay. And if I wasn't listening to you, how would that make you feel?
Well, fine, because I wasn't talking to you.
Okay. And if you were sharing, how would that make you feel? Yeah?
Hurt.
Okay. Maybe a little hurt. Yeah?
Bad.
Bad. Mm-hmm.
Not as important.
Alright, you wouldn't feel important because I'm not listening to you. Okay? Now, those negative actions that we just talked about, those things that I was doing, this is kind of a tough question, but does anybody have an idea of what they might be called in communication? It starts with a B. The word starts with a B. Anybody want to just take a guess? I know it's kind of a tough one. No guesses? They're called the barriers. Okay, so those negative actions, like me looking at papers while you're talking, is a barrier in communication. And I know we just talked about a few, but can you give me some examples of negative things or barriers in communication? Yeah.
Like when someone's trying to talk to you and like you're looking at your phone and not looking at them.
I like that. So looking at your phone. What else? Yeah.
Not being listened to.
So just not listening.
Just shaking your head even though you don't know what they're talking about.
So not really responding to them, right?
Start to make a conversation with someone else.
Talking to someone else, that's a great one, right? 'Cause then they know you're not even listening. And one more. Anybody got one more?
Being ignored.
Ignoring them. Okay? So those are all barriers in communication. Okay, so the ones I have up here, a big one is not having any eye contact. Right? If you're talking to me and I'm looking somewhere else, probably not listening. Right? Being on your phone, which we mentioned, not listening, or having poor body language, like crossing your arms and just showing you're not engaged in the conversation. Now, we know what barriers are. Those are the negative behaviors. What do we think the opposite of a barrier is? What is something that helps us get over a barrier? It's also another B word. You have a guess?
Bridges.
Bridges, right? I mentioned that in the beginning. So those positive behaviors in communication are called bridges. And we want to think of some examples of bridges. Things you want someone to be doing when you're having a conversation with them.
Eye contact.
Right? So just some of the opposites. So you want eye contact. What else?
Listening to the conversation.
Right? Active listening. Yeah.
Paying attention.
Paying attention, being involved. Yeah.
Responding to them after they're done talking.
Yeah, being involved in that conversation and responding to them. One more?
Being engaged into what they're talking about.
Being engaged. Awesome. This shows that you're interested. Okay. Alright, so we just talked about eye contact, active listening, good body language, and responding in that conversation. Those are all examples of bridges. Okay? Now that we know bridges and barriers, the positive and negative, we need to know about the types of communication. Does anybody have an idea what the two types are? You don't have to overthink it. Pretty simple. I know you know it. Anybody want to take a guess? What is it called when you're speaking? What kind of communication is that? Yeah? Go ahead.
Talking.
Close. Verbal. And if verbal's one, what's our other one? The word verbal's in it. Come on. Yeah?
Non-verbal.
And nonverbal. Okay, so we have verbal and nonverbal. So like we said, verbal is you speaking. Does anybody have an idea what nonverbal could include? Yeah.
Texting.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking more of like when you're speaking with someone, what could be a nonverbal thing that you do?
Like FaceTime.
Okay, so if we're having a conversation, what is something that I could do that's nonverbal that shows you if I'm interested or not? Yeah.
Listening.
Okay, they're listening. So maybe something more along the lines of like facial expressions. What else?
Like nodding your head or smiling.
Okay, yeah. So facial expressions. Is that what you were gonna say? You got something? No. That's okay. Yeah.
Body language.
Body language. Perfect. Right. So those facial expressions and body language are a big part of showing if you're involved in that conversation. Does anybody want to take a guess what the percentage of our communication that we use is? Verbal versus nonverbal. Out of 100%, is it 50-50? Is it 100 to 0? Anybody want to take a guess at those numbers? You can take a guess. Come on.
60 for non-verbal and 40 for verbal.
Okay, that's a good guess. Anybody else? Yeah.
30 for verbal. 70
Okay. So do we think verbal is more, or do we think nonverbal is more? Raise your hand if you think nonverbal is more. Okay, most of us. So it's actually 65% nonverbal, which you were really close with, or 35% verbal. Right? Because verbal is only us speaking, when nonverbal has all these things: facial expression, your movement, your appearance, okay, your gestures. We good with that so far? Okay, now we're gonna get into a little interactive activity. I'm gonna split the class into two groups. Okay, you're either gonna be a 1 or a 2, so make sure you remember your number. The 1s are gonna go out in the hallway for a quick minute, and the 2s are gonna stay here in the classroom with me. Okay, and then I'll give you instructions once you're broken up. Alright? 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 1. 1, you are 1. 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. You're also going to be a 2. In the back, yes. Okay? 1, step out in the hallway for a quick second. 2s, come here to me. 2s, come here, so I don't want them to hear. Stay right there in the hallway. I'll be out in 1 second. Alright, so 2s. So your job is going to be, the ones are going to come in and tell you a story. Your job is to listen to them, but you're going to seem totally uninterested. However you want to do that. Okay? You're going to listen to them, but you want to seem totally uninterested in anything they want to say. Okay? Don't tell them what your directions are. We're going to talk about it after. Sound good? We're good with that? Okay, so you can spread her out along the classroom, and one person will come up to you to have a conversation.
No.
Alright, group 1 first.
Into the timeout. No.
Your direction, you're going to go and find one person in the classroom. You're going to
I
have a
really
conversation
don't
with them
care about what
for about 2 to 3 minutes.
right
You're going to tell them a story about something that you're passionate about, something that you're really interested in, whatever you want that to be. Okay? And then we're going to we'll talk about it after. Easy enough? Alright, here we go. 2s, one of you is just going to have to pair up, because there's more 2s. So just somebody go with a partner, so that one person can tell you the story. Alright, you guys are going to stay together? Okay. Alright, 1s, go find one of your classmates, and you have about 2 minutes to tell your story.
Can you tell me?
They need a, right there. Okay, you two again. Alright, go ahead. About 30 more seconds. All right, and you can return back to your seats.
Very interesting conversation about nothing good.
Now, just right off the bat, does anybody want to talk about their initial thoughts on the activity? What do you think about it? Yeah?
It was like so weird because I wasn't like supposed to be interested, so it was like weird because
Okay.
you feel like it's supposed to be like common sense to feel more interested.
To have a conversation with the person, right?
Yeah, but it's awkward when you're not supposed to be interested.
Yeah?
It was way too easy.
It was easy to not be interested, all right? Anybody else? You liked it? So, I'll tell you what the directions were and then you can tell me more on your thoughts. So group 1 was supposed to come in and tell you a story about something they were interested in, something they were passionate about, right? Because they're interested in that and they wanted to tell you about it. Group 2 was supposed to listen to you, but just seemed totally uninterested. Now group 1, how annoying was that? Anybody? Yeah?
It was pretty annoying.
It was pretty annoying, right? You just could tell they were totally not interested. Anybody else from group 1 want to share their thoughts? How'd you feel? How did it make you feel? Yeah?
Terrible.
Not good, right?
Yeah.
Anybody else from group 1? Alright, so in group 2, how did you feel? What were your thoughts on it, yeah? Right, you weren't even really having a conversation, it was kind of boring, yeah?
It was so hard not to laugh.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, right? It was kind of funny, yeah?
They were just telling their story and then nothing to, we were just doing our own thing.
Yeah, because it's kind of funny because that's not what you usually do, right? You're not having communication. You want to add something? You just kind of felt bad for him? Yeah?
So it's not really how I felt about it, but it's like what my thoughts were.
Yeah.
So I realized that I like what I was doing to seem not interested in their story. I do that sometimes, like even regularly when people are talking to me.
Right? It kind of makes you think about how you're interacting daily, right? How you're communicating. Yeah.
Like, when we're in a conversation, like, not like communication, like, just like happens, like, when you're forced, like, to not, like, pay attention, it's like, you can't do it.
Yeah. Right? And that happens in daily life, right? People don't pay attention to you sometimes and it doesn't make you feel great. Right? And it kind of makes you realize that you should be interested in what people are saying to you. So now those barriers that group 2 was just doing, right? Those were barriers, not being uninterested in the conversation. That's an example of poor communication. And how do you think that that poor communication affects your relationship with other people? Yeah.
I feel like they would start to drift away from you because you're not seeming interested in what they're talking about and even having a conversation with you.
It's a great point. If they're not interested, they might not want to talk to you. Yeah.
You probably want to make friends these days,
Okay, probably it would be harder to make friends if you're not being interested in what they're saying, or even the people that you're currently friends with. They might not want to talk to you as much because you're just not engaged with their conversation. Anything else you think might happen? So that's pretty good. We covered it, right? So, right, people might just not want to talk to you as much if you're not into what they're saying. Or like those feelings we talked about earlier, they'll get frustrated or mad, right? And like we mentioned that your friends might not be willing to talk to you as much. Right? And the important thing that I want you to take away from that activity was that communication and how you communicate with others can affect your health and your relationship with other people. If that is positive or negative, right? If you're doing barriers or you're using bridges. Okay, your communication will affect your relationship with others, and that's why we're having a unit on communication, because it's important to have effective communication. Okay, so I'm going to pass out this exit slip. It has 3 questions on it. Okay, you are going to complete them to the best of your ability, and when you're done, you are going to hand them in. Okay, these questions are based off of our lesson and activity today. You can stop there. Did it get to 20 minutes?
It's like 18:20.